There's a lot of controversy going around about Netflix's Cleopatra show, and here to talk to me about that is my good friend Aaron Sparrow. How you doing, Aaron?
I'm doing great, making my triumphant return to the channel after, a month?
It's been about a month or something like that. Where's your Christmas tree? You got nerd ornaments behind you?
I got nerd ornaments behind me now. I got Snake Mountain. I got some Galactus going on. I got air conditioner unit. Having a good time.
You know, a few weeks back, I was going through the upcoming stuff on Netflix, and I noticed there's a Cleopatra docuseries, meaning it's like a documentary. And then obviously the character that's in the thumbnail was black. And I was like, Cleopatra wasn't black. She was actually Greek. Certainly didn't look like that. We actually have portraits of the character. This is a little strange. I didn't make a video about it. I actually talked to my wife. I was like, isn't that weird? Yeah, she's like, yeah, that is weird. That's not very historically accurate. Now people are bringing it up, talking to the director and obviously talking to Netflix. And she is not happy about it. And she keeps blaming everyone else but herself on this one, Aaron.
That's just par for the course in Hollywood. You know, the reason Lightyear failed is because we were all too stupid to get it. You know, that's what Pete Docter at Pixar said. You know, it's always our fault. It's never Hollywood's fault. You know, it's the old Skinner meme. You know, am I so out of touch? No, it's the kids who are wrong.
So she actually released an op-ed in Variety and talking about all this, and it's absolutely insane if you go read the whole thing. But it's clear that she has a problem with the original portrayal of Cleopatra in films. Director Tina Gharavi offered a response to the bevy of criticisms against Queen Cleopatra via an exclusive op-ed published by Variety on April 21st. I remember as a kid seeing Elizabeth Taylor play Cleopatra. I was captivated, but even then, I felt the image was not right. Was her skin really that white? With this new production, could I find the answers about Cleopatra's heritage and release her from the stranglehold that Hollywood had placed on her image? Basically having a problem with her being portrayed, I guess, as a white character in the movie Cleopatra by Elizabeth Taylor. Obviously, that is a different time in Hollywood themselves, and a lot of things were whitewashed at that time. But I don't think the Elizabeth Taylor playing Cleopatra was actually ever an issue, because that's pretty close to what the character actually looked like.
So now you've got a black Cleopatra. And is some young girl going to be watching this Cleopatra Netflix show and saying, oh, I am captivated, but this isn't quite right. I don't believe that Cleopatra was that dark. And then have to do another version in the future? Is that what's going to happen? And we'll finally maybe get a Greek woman playing Cleopatra? Because, you know, she was Macedonian. So that's that region of the world. You know, if you're going for authenticity, you missed the mark.
The complexion of the actress is really what upset her. And apparently it was like a lifelong obsession of this director to go and make that right by completely going the opposite direction and making it more incorrect.
Yeah, well, you know, everybody's got their fixations, I guess. I think it's, you know, my first question would be, who asked for another Cleopatra film? I guess she's the only one who's really, you know, excited about it, pushing for it because of this this burden that she's carried her whole life, which is ridiculous. But yeah, I'm like, okay, so the film already had an uphill struggle of people wanting to watch it. And now you're actively turning people off, and you're going and you're doing interviews, which are going to turn people off, and they're not gonna watch it. They're gonna be like, I'm so tired of this. You know, it's just the same thing over and over. We've become so diverse that everything looks the same. I was in a Target the other day, and I'm walking through the book section, and all the young adult novels on the wall, I stopped because I thought that the entire wall was just one series, but it was all just Harry Potter ripoffs with black female leads. Every single one of them, except one that had a black male lead. But like every single one of them. And I just thought to myself, when your genre is so diverse that you could just swap the covers around, that's a problem.
Well, another problem with what Tina's doing, she's actually trying to recreate history with this. She ends up stating, Cleopatra was 8 generations away from those Ptolemaic ancestors, making the chance of her being white somewhat unlikely. After 300 years, surely we can safely say Cleopatra was Egyptian. She was no more Greek or Macedonian than Rita Wilson or Jennifer Aniston. Both are one generation from Greece. And that's a great hypothesis and all that stuff if you actually have a person that we don't know what she looks like. But there's actually a sculpture of Cleopatra made during her visit to Rome. It's actually traced right to the time that she actually visited the city itself. It was created of her face. And we have a painting of her face that's in color that shows her with red hair and with her skin complexion. This stuff isn't rocket science, but she's trying to act like history doesn't know what Cleopatra looked like.
Yeah, it's like we've got actual records. We've got actual representations of this person historically that, you know, if you want to do a more authentic version, you know, you can actually find somebody who matches the role. You don't have to go and like just take it in the opposite direction. You're complaining that you didn't feel that it was authentic enough, and then you're doing something completely inauthentic.
And this isn't just a movie, it's a docu-series. It's supposed to be a documentary style movie showing the real life person of Cleopatra in her life events. Now, Netflix has a shoddy record with this. Their track record's spotty, but at least normally they try to do what they can to make it somewhat historically accurate.
Oh, this is this is activism before accuracy, and that's what we're getting now. Didn't they do like a movie where like Anne Boleyn was cast as a black actress, and they're like, yeah, it doesn't matter, because diversity is more important than historical accuracy. Well, if you're telling a fantasy version of something, sure, but if you're like trying to say that this is a historical docudrama, then you should try to actually stick to the source material. You should try to make it as accurate as possible. So yeah, we've just entered this time where it's like it matters until it doesn't. And, people see it and they realize that it's inauthentic, and you're going to drive people away.
So she announces the problem. People are giving criticism. And now she tries to distract from the real issue because it's a docuseries. And she says, the HBO series Rome portrayed one of the most intelligent, sophisticated, and powerful women in the world as sleazy, dissipated drug addict. Yet Egypt didn't seem to mind. Where was the outrage then but portraying her as black? Well, there's a big difference between Rome, which is a fictionalized version of history where it's basically a drama series, and a docu-series. It's not a documentary, and it's not actually trying to portray the actual events of their lives. They're just characters in the events themselves that are kind of around stuff that happened.
Yeah, it's a dramatization, and there's a lot of creative license in that. But when you're saying that you're going to do something that's, it's a docuseries, we did all our research and we're very, very proud. It's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. And it doesn't smack true. And she is a hypocrite because she's doing the exact same thing that she saw as a child by her own words and thought that, was inappropriate. And so now she's gone inappropriate in the opposite direction.
Well, because she's doing it in the opposite direction, that means that she's morally taking the high ground, according to her. I think that's the moral of the story, Aaron, is that she's in the right because she's righting a wrong that actually never existed.
Yeah, well, when you create wrongs for you to to adjust, there's no end to what you can, the problems that you can solve and how heroic you can be. Create a problem that doesn't exist and then solve it. That's she's got a good political career ahead of her.
Well, my favorite part in the op-ed is when she actually starts blaming Egyptians for having issues with this portrayal of Cleopatra. She says, perhaps it's not just that I've directed a series that portrays Cleopatra as black, but that I've asked Egyptians to see themselves as Africans, and they are furious at me for that. I am okay with this. She also stated, while shooting, I became the target of a huge online hate campaign. Egyptians accuse me of blackwashing and stealing their history. So now it's the Egyptians' fault because they know the history of their country, and they actually wanted to see an authentic portrayal of Cleopatra in a docu-series. But it's their fault. It's not hers. She did nothing wrong.
Why is she
proud of it?
Why is she denying these Egyptians lived experience? I thought that was very important. I thought that, being respectful of everybody's culture. And, when you go in and you're going to do a series based on a historical figure from a specific culture, you have to be sensitive to that culture. You don't get to just dismiss them wholesale because, well, I just wanted to do this. I just wanted to make Cleopatra black because I wanted to appear ultra progressive to, the people that I drink, spritzers with.
I hate to break this to her. There are different cultures in Africa. Not everybody is the same, no matter where they came from. And I can tell you right now, telling somebody that's Egyptian and calling them black or saying that they're African, they don't really culturally descend from there. They're more affiliated with the Middle East. It's the same thing as calling someone Ethiopian and saying they're from like the Horn of Africa. Completely different place, completely different culture, completely different histories. And guess what? Not all of them like that stuff. And they are proud of who they are. They are proud of where they came from. And they are proud of the lineage that they have and where their actual history lies.
And this goes back to just every argument that we have about these sorts of things is, this is actual history as opposed to fictional history, which we deal with a lot of times with these changes. But it's still about respecting the lore. We know what it's supposed to look like. We know what Cleopatra is supposed to look like. We know who she's supposed to be. We know who Luke Skywalker is supposed to be. These are things that that fans get outraged about. And if you're a fan of history or you're somebody who's just proud of your heritage, this is going to bother you. And for her to just wholesale dismiss it is just the same type of just head up their ass Hollywood elitism that we see all the time. Where no, shut up, you rubes. We know better than you. I guess we're just a little more progressive. progressive. I guess we're just a little more blah, blah, blah. You know, all the little condescending things that they put out there, you know, to tell you that they're better than you and that you're wrong. And it's just, people are sick of it. People are sick of it. And I hope this blows up in their face like so many things do when they, you know, when they do these sorts of things and then go out and actually talk down to the customer. I hope that it's just a complete disaster, and I hope it affects her career, and I hope it gives her some things to think about.
Well, the worst part is by the end, she ends up actually mocking someone specifically for contacting her and said, hey, I don't think this is correct. She ends up mocking this guy from Egypt. He says, Amir in his bedroom in Cairo wrote to me to earnestly appeal that Cleopatra was Greek. She ends up mocking him and says, oh, Lord, why would that be a good thing to you, Amir? You're Egyptian. Apparently, respecting your history and realizing where key people came from and what their ancestry is, and maybe even what they look like, is worth mocking now, rather than understanding that clearly Amir was proud of his heritage, proud of the history, and he wanted to see something, if you're going to do a documentary series, that was actually correct to the character and do Cleopatra justice. She actually was a pretty significant figure in the history of the world itself.
Yeah, and Amir is appealing to, he's appealing to logic, which of course is going to fall on deaf ears with this woman. But, you know, he's basically saying, hey, I'm Egyptian. I don't want a Egyptian washed or an African washed or whatever, you know, it is that you want to call it, version of Cleopatra. I want a historical version of Cleopatra. That's important to me and my heritage, that it be accurate and that it be correct. But the problem is that Amir is respectful of someone else with a different skin color, and that's not allowed according to this director. According to this director, he should be glad that the Greek heritage of the actual Cleopatra is being stripped away, because that's a white person and you should hate them, Amir. That's what she's saying. It's just more divisiveness. Amir is on the right track. Amir is like, hey, it doesn't matter that she was, from Greece and she came in and she was, in charge of the nation of Egypt, and, this is what it was, and I'm proud of it. I'm happy about it, and I think it should be represented on the screen. And why does what Amir wants represented on the screen less important than what she wants represented on the screen, because of, problems that she had with the Elizabeth Taylor version when she was a little girl?
When she's not Egyptian. This is actually part of his history. She's Iranian, but grew up in the UK, in New Zealand, and then in America, I believe in New Jersey. So basically, she's a Jersey girl who has decided that to go out there and change someone's history because Elizabeth Taylor as Cleopatra bothered her as a kid, so she decided to go and do it the exact opposite way.
She might as well be a white progressive. It doesn't matter what her heritage is, based on where she grew up. She's got the right ideals. She's got the Hollywood ideals. So it's okay for her to go in and change history because you know what? It'll make her feel good at parties. And I guarantee you, she didn't have a problem with this when she was a child. She didn't have this idea until she got older and she got filled with these Hollywood notions of, what we needed to do to be progressive in film and in television. These people, they use this as a shield. They bring people of color in and they use them as a shield to deflect criticism. And I think what you're going to find is it's probably not a very good series. This is just, what she wants to, the shield that she wants to use to protect the show from criticism. And we've seen it over and over again. For a show that like most people probably weren't that interested in, most people probably aren't going to watch, and especially now they aren't going to watch it. You know what they should have done? You want to recast Cleopatra? Do Space Cleopatra. Cleopatra in the future. She's in a clone body. She's got a blaster rifle. You know what? These things would have been more interesting. Do a Flash Gordon Cleopatra, style sci-fi adventure. Then you can cast whoever the hell you want.
Even an old comic head like Gerry Conway can't get the stuff out of his head. He thinks race swapping is the answer to everything. In fact, because police and military people like the Punisher logo, he says we need to race swap the character so people will stop supporting Punisher or something like that. It's just the dumbest, tiredest trope in the world. If you haven't seen this video, definitely check it out right now. There's also a link in the video description.